Told you earlier, the Peoria County State's Attorney says the officers involved in the city's most recent police-involved shooting acted justifiably. Still, there are questions of where police-community relations stand in terms of trust and ways that it can get stronger. And with that, joining me now is former NAACP president and a member of the Police Community Relation Board in Peoria, Mr. Don Jackson. Thank you for joining me for this.
Not a problem.
What are your initial thoughts now hearing the findings? Obviously, you've had a lot of conversations being a part of that board of the investigation and its findings. Well,
first of all, I'm not surprised by the findings. It seems to me anytime, not only locally but nationally, there is a police-involved shooting, the results are that the police officer acted justifiably, regardless of the circumstances, which initially caused the confrontation in the beginning. And so it does not surprise me, even though this was initially simply a traffic stop, that we all of a sudden now have the death penalty for someone who runs a traffic sign. So the findings were not surprising to me.
And, for clarity, because I don't know if we had that earlier, but yes, so according to that report, police saw the car that Daniel and another person was in. The report says that they ran a stop sign. After that, they ran the tag, said that the license had expired, so they stopped them. One of the persons within the car, not Daniel, police say gave a false name for himself. They ran it. He had warrants out, and so that was what led up to this point. That person went into the back of a police car, and then after that is when the police say that the chase and then the subsequent shooting took place. So that's what you're talking about.
Well, but even before that, my recollection is Jerry Mitchell was still the police chief at the time, and they could not give a clear description of what the violation, the traffic stop violation was. It was a stop sign, not a stop light. And the questions were, well, was it a rolling stop? What exactly happened that caused the police officers to want to stop somebody for a traffic violation, And then, of course, after that, the question is, why the chase? If you knew the car, you had the driver's or the plate number, what's the purpose of having a chase under those circumstances? You could have picked up the individuals the next day, and perhaps the young man who was ultimately shot would still be alive today. So I have a real problem with the whole scenario. But like I say, the results by even the state police don't surprise me.
And it'll be interesting. I know these are conversations and questions that you'll have in that police community relation board within the next meeting that I believe you have once a month, and including in that is the police chief now, Lauren Marion, who is there. The question for you, just kind of switching gears, this isn't common. I don't think that's something to be argued, that Peoria would have 2 police-involved shootings within 5 months. I think the one prior to that was several years before that. And even though in these cases, again, like you said, the police have been ruled by 2 separate investigations that they were justified in self-defense, there are those questions of where the community and police relations stand. Do you think it's caused any strain, just the circumstances in of itself between the community and police, and then what needs to be done so that it can improve if that's the case?
I definitely do. We are concerned that we'll be a market like several other markets where it seems to me that regardless of the circumstances, a young African-American male gets killed in one of these situations. So, yeah, I think it's placed a great deal of strain on the city. In our police community relations, we've talked for months, almost years, about the body cams. We know
I was going to ask you about that.
Well, the city of Peoria got a grant from Cops, Inc. in Washington, D.C., I believe back when Settingsgard was still the chief of police. And yet here we are today, and we still don't have body cams. And just recently, one of the small communities around it, I don't know if it was Peoria Heights or one of those communities, they now have body cams. Bartonville has body cams. But somehow Peoria can't get over the hump. And they tell us it's because, well, it cost a lot of money to store this stuff. Well, that, in my judgment, is a problem that should have been included in the grant from the beginning. You should have had funding for that, and yet that seems to be the holdup in this entire scenario. So I think there's a reluctance on the part of the officers internally to have body cams, and I don't think those in command have the ability to act as supervisors and decision makers and say, we're going to do it whether you like it or not.
It'll certainly be a conversation that continues now about those body cameras, when the date will be. I believe that date has been pushed back, and so when that actually will roll out within the department, because I can only imagine how that helps in that transparency conversation with situations like this and,
right.
and others.
Right.
Mr. Jackson, thank you so much for joining us and having this conversation. I'm sure there'll be plenty more as we move forward.